Welcome back, fight fans. We're back, and guess what? It's the 50th episode, the 50th broadcast of BLÜ-FC, which I think that means we've been doing this for a year, because I think I took 2 Wednesdays off. Maybe it was just one, I'm not sure, so could be next week, I don't know. But either way, I think this is the 1-year anniversary. How crazy is that? The 50th episode, and still nobody's watching, but that's okay. We're still having fun, and maybe people will watch these eventually. I hope they do. But anyway, we've got UFC London to talk about. Then we've got the Contender Series week 1 that just started yesterday. And then we've got the pay-per-view UFC 277. A great show today. What wasn't a great show though is UFC London. Very disappointing, to be honest. I mean, I know I'm not the only one. Quite a few people were just really just saying how bad it was. I mean, there were two good moments of the card, but honestly, most of it really was just kind of underwhelming. Not necessarily that a lot of the wrong people won, it just wasn't really all that exciting. And then the exact same thing happened last night in the Contender Series, except for the Contender Series, to be fair, was a lot worse. We'll get into all that, but we'll open it up, of course, with UFC London and getting into that card right away. So that opened up with Nicholas Dalby and Claudio Silva. One of the many decisions in a row. I don't think I'll spend too much time talking about all these, because again, not necessarily that interesting. And they were all just a lot of decisions going around. But so we'll open up with that. Silva opened up with the pressure early, backed Dalby up into the cage. Wow, already a typo in there. Oh my goodness. Tried to take Dalby down. Figured that was going to be a problem for Dalby though, because I did have Dalby going into this. By the way, I got the first 7 of the card right, and then drove off a cliff. And of course, those were the ones that we ended up seeing in the results here that we'll be talking about just now. But anyway, that's beside the point. That is beside the point. Found himself on top of Dalby, working for that submission. Dalby did a pretty good job of defending, but Silva is still doing pretty well with the jiu-jitsu. Dalby came back hard in the second round, some pretty good kicks and pressure, but then was pretty quickly taken down by Silva, at which point I was getting slightly worried for my pick there, of course. Dalby tried to get back up, but had his back taken. Used that position, Silva used that position to work for his signature rear naked choke. Then Dalby finally managed to flip the script, found himself on top, I should say, and then let loose that ground and pound. I got distracted by a notification there. Sorry. What was I saying? Ground and pound, and then move back to the feet And then that was when they all turned around. Silva started to get a lot more tired, and that's when Dalby started to get it going. Third round, finally, by the way, the crowd started to get a little bit excited with the change of pace, cheering on Dalby every time he landed a big strike. And thanks to all that offense, I mean, I had it 1-1. I think that was pretty clear at that point. Silva winning the first round, Dalby winning the second round with that late comeback there. Silva tried to get things going into the third, but Dalby actually dragged him down in the canvas there. And Dalby was just getting the ground and pound going there, trying to get a finish. Didn't really get the finish, but hey, got a decision win there. Again, you know, I can't say it was an insane win. It wasn't like crazy or anything, but you know, solid win for Dalby. Good for him. And good for us, because again, that was one of the picks. And this one was one of my underdog picks. Again, I didn't actually talk about any of these last time, but as always, I've talked about this quite a bit before. I do make picks on Tapology for every single fight. It's just that we don't have time to talk about all of them in the lead up to these fights. And honestly, we probably don't have time to talk about them now either. But you know what? Why not? I don't know. Anyway, Victoria Leonardo and Mandy Bohm. And I actually had Victoria Leonardo going into this, even though she was the underdog. Not just because women's fights are so unpredictable, you might as well just go with the underdog. Not because of that, but because honestly, I watched the tape and Mandy Bohm just wasn't really that impressive. And yeah, Leonardo kind of proved that here. Mandy Bohm was using the the distance early because she did have the reach advantage, and she was using that to her advantage early. But from there, clinched up, and that was really the first big mistake there. Leonardo used that position, which she wanted to be close from, you know, obviously to the kickboxer and Bohm. You want to be clinched up close, trying to take the fight to the ground. So that worked perfectly in her favor. And Victoria started working for the takedown there. Bohm did pretty well to defend it, but and Bohm started to, well, actually, she did end up getting out of the clinch and getting some of her offense going again. But she was actually taken down a couple of times there. Pretty close round. But I was giving the opening round to Leonardo there with all the control time, because she did have a lot of control time along the fence and of course on the ground as well there. So yeah, opening round there to Leonardo. Next round, pretty good striking from both women. But then I really need to. It's so hot in here. I'm getting flustered, which I hope we can make it through the whole stream, but I don't know. I'm not good with heat, and it is very hot in here. Just a forewarning. Also, if you hear wind going against the mic, it's my fan. I should have said that earlier, because it's really hot in here. But anyway, moving on. Hopefully we can push through all this heat. Very hot outside and inside. We'll try and get through it. But anyway, moving on. It was actually Leonardo that led the exchanges on the feet and moved back over to the fence. Wasn't really the most exciting clinch battle from there, which was actually eventually separated by the ref. But again, you know, all that control time for Leonardo kind of added up, at least in my mind, and found herself up 2-0. That's how I saw it at that point. Third round, where are we here? Pretty close. Oh, yeah, there we go. Extremely close round, but really Bohm just wasn't getting any kind of offense going whatsoever. So, I mean, you know, she landed a couple of combos near the end of the fight, but all of that wrestling and control from Leonardo, pretty clear decision win there. I'd have scored it 30-27, maybe 29-28, but yeah. Pretty good win for Victoria Leonardo there after breaking her arm 2 fights in a row. How insane is that? I mean, seriously, that's crazy, especially to come back from that and then win like that. Amazing. Or even just get back in there at all. I don't know if I would want to do that. Third fight, Jai Herbert, Kyle Nelson. I figured this was going to be a little bit close, but that Herbert was probably going to get a finish. That's how I saw it happening anyway. Not so. Another fairly lackluster fight here. Tight striking match to open up. Neither guy really landing anything significant, but both of them landing a couple of clean shots here and there. From there, it was actually Nelson that stole the momentum, pushed Herbert into the fence. From there, Jai actually switched positions, found himself in the dominant spot along the fence. I feel like this just isn't in the right spot. My goodness, we're off to a flying start here in the 50th stream. There we go. Wow. Continuing on. Herbert came. Oh yeah, the first round. My goodness, I'm losing it. As they separated, Nelson did land some great kicks, and to me, probably won that opening round on the cards. Which honestly, I didn't really see that one coming because again, I watched tape for every single one of these fights on the card. There was no indication whatsoever that he was going to be doing that. I mean, Herbert was basically beating Ilya Topuria. So, I mean, for Kyle Nelson to come in here like that, I really did not expect that. But good for him anyway, especially to win that opening round. From there, Jai switched positions, found himself in the dominant spot along the fence. Oh, actually, I just said that. In the second round, coming in with some heat, throwing out some decent combos, pressuring Nelson back, did Jai Herbert there. Sadly, led to some more clinch position along the fence, which is exactly where Nelson wanted to be. I mean, every time the fight ended up there, he was doing a lot better. Let's just say that. It was another close round, but Herbert, I thought, seemed to barely edge ahead. Yeah, but it really could have gone either way at that point. I had it tied, but I really could have seen it going any which way at that point. Herbert was definitely the much fresher fighter going into the final round, but seemed to have problems with his leg from all of Nelson's kicks there. Luckily for Herbert, he found himself on top of Nelson early in the round. Herbert was trying to get, I should really say Jai. It sounds a lot better because Herbert just doesn't sound that dangerous. Jai sounds a lot cooler. Jai trying to get some damage going, but Nelson was doing a pretty good job of shutting that down. And with a minute left in the round, Nelson did get back up, but couldn't get anything going. So to me, seemed like a pretty clear 29-28 for Jai Herbert there. But again, it was so close. Really, you could have seen it either way. But I mean, also, you'd kind of imagine in London, you don't want to see that or say that that's maybe what's happening here, but he did get the nod on the cards and they all saw it 29-28. None of them saw it the other way. So maybe, I don't know, either they're just really good judges or maybe they were giving the home guy a little bit of credit there. Either way, I did think he won. So whatever. Anyway, we cashed in on that one too. So it was okay. After that, though, that was the first prelim that I had talked about last time, and that was Muhammad Mokaev, Charles Johnson, and my God, did I underestimate Charles Johnson there going into this. I mean, I saw the clip, I saw the tapes of him, I saw a couple of his fights, watched a decent amount of it, and honestly, I just wasn't really all that impressed by Charles Johnson. I mean, he wasn't bad, he just wasn't really doing much to really say, hey, I'm going to win this fight. So that's exactly why I was going with Mokaev on this. I mean, obviously, then added into the fact that Mokaev is just insanely good. He is so good. So I thought there was going to be an early finish like most people here, but that is not what happened. I mean, yeah, the crowd exploded, obviously, as soon as Mokaev got out there, and he pushed forward right away and really kept that going the entire fight. But just like last time, he was pressuring hard, smoking him with some pretty big combos, throwing him into the canvas. But Johnson was actually doing fairly well at defending those takedowns. But I mean, Mokaev just clearly in control there. I mean, never a doubt at all. This continued the entire opening round, Mokaev dragging Johnson to the ground, but then getting returned fairly quickly back to the feet there. I mean, obviously still scoring it for Mokaev, of course, but because there's nothing coming from Johnson at all. But still, I mean, that really tells you how good Johnson could actually be if he's shutting down all these wrestling attacks from somebody this good. The second round, Mokaev finally got his takedown, but still couldn't really get anything going with it, and even got a second takedown in the round there. But I mean, Mokaev finally got a little bit of damage going. Still nothing crazy though, but obviously up to 2 rounds there. And then the final round, Johnson actually opened up with some pressure, but was quickly shut down again by the wrestling of Mokaev. And once again, Mokaev just dominated the wrestling, not really threatening any finishes at any point, but still clearly controlling the fight. Yeah, and I mean, again, not the finish we expected, of course, just a decision win, a dominant decision win, but it really still just reinforces the fact that he's just so good. He is unbelievably good, and he did not give up the entire time. Mokaev literally just went as hard as he could for 15 minutes straight, didn't slow down, kept all that pressure going, and I mean, that in itself is insanely impressive. So I mean, some people are going to be like, oh, he's not that good, he didn't get the finish over this guy. But you know what, I'm honestly impressed with Johnson as well, more than anything. But also, I mean, like I said, the cardio, we know for a fact now that from now on, we know Mokaev, especially considering he's so young, we know that he can go all five rounds probably, and definitely as hard as he wants to go in all 3 rounds. So, I mean, we learned that too, which is really good to know, especially going forward in his next fights. Now we know, he's not going to get tired. He doesn't get weaker as the fight goes on. He's just like that all the time. So from a betting perspective, actually it worked out really well, because I mean, yes, we got the win, but also we learned a lot more for his next matchups as well. And yeah, I mean, the wrestling, what was I going to say here? I did have something to say. To me, honestly, I think he can pretty easily compete in the top 15. I mean, the flyweights, there's a lot of good flyweights out there, but none of them are like, none of them, I should say, between like 6 and 15. So like, that bottom kind of 10 of the top 15. Nobody in that way, I don't think, is doing what Mokaev's doing here. I mean, actually, no. Actually, that I take that back. There are a couple guys, but there's not too many guys in the top 15 that can compete with somebody that does this kind of thing. So honestly, I think he could go into the top 15 in his next matchup, and I think that might honestly be the way they go with it. I mean, maybe they'll give him one more fight outside, but I think somebody from 10 to 14 is what he's getting next, because he's just unbelievably good. And I really actually do kind of hope that they keep is it Charles Johnson? Yeah, I knew it was Johnson, but I couldn't remember the first name. I really actually do hope that they keep Johnson around, because he was pretty good. I mean, he didn't get, he shut down all that. He didn't necessarily get a whole lot of offense, but if he can do that in the defense, I mean, it'd be nice to at least see how he does with the offense, and he might actually end up being somebody in the top 15 eventually too. But my God, get a different haircut. It's wow, literally the worst haircut I've ever seen. I don't know who told him that looked sick, but no, no. And I'm surprised I never saw that. I never saw anybody on Twitter or anywhere making fun of Johnson's hair. Maybe because it was early in the prelims and nobody was watching. I don't know. But my God, that's the worst haircut I've ever seen. Please switch that up. Yeah, so that's really the only complaint I have about him so far. The next fight, Jonathan Pierce, Makwan Amirkhani. I wasn't sure which way to go about this, which is the only reason I actually didn't talk about this fight actually, because Jonathan Pierce also wasn't a huge name. That was the other reason too. But I love Makwan Amirkhani. So I thought maybe he was going to get a finish, but ultimately I did end up picking Pierce by decision, just because I thought he was just more well-rounded. That's the only reason. And I thought he was just going to basically wrestle Amirkhani into submission. But I mean, not into, you know what I mean? You know, a 3-round wrestle match, basically just pinning him down to the ground. That's what I thought was going to happen. But yeah, anyway, fight started off pretty slow. Exploded though with Amirkhani shooting in for a takedown, but Pierce started to throw out these huge elbows. I mean, my God, busted Makwan open. Amirkhani was sinking in actually some pretty deep submission attempts, but Pierce was doing very well to shut those down, which, I mean, I kind of figured was going to happen. That's why I wasn't as worried about it in terms of the pick. I feel like I just yelled into the mic there by accident. I'm a mess. I become a mess when it gets hot. Just completely fall apart. After a few minutes of those really insane, actually, grappling exchanges, the fight moved back to the feet. It was a tight round, but I mean, again, we're supposed to be paying attention to damage more than anything. And Pierce was doing that with his elbows. By the way, I should really click on this just to see if anybody's sending any messages here. My goodness. Even my screen is a mess. My layout, I should say. After a few minutes, I said, okay. Yeah, I thought that Pierce went ahead. Because, I mean, he had the defense too, but, we're going for damage here more than anything. So I had to go with Pierce there because of those elbows. But it was close. It was close. Amirkhani opened up with some heavy striking in that second round. Landed some pretty good shots, but Pierce stole the momentum, dragged Makwan to the ground, which is exactly, like I said, what I thought he was going to do. And this time, pretty clear that JSP, Jonathan Pierce, was very much in control. By the way, saying that, I remember the best part of this fight, which is Michael Bisping's impression of GSP. Wow. Amazing. I didn't know I needed that in my life, but I did. I mean, how could you not love Michael Bisping anyway? What a fucking legend. But especially the impressions. Love that guy. And you gotta love GSP too. I'm sure he probably laughed his ass off too when he was listening to that. At least I hope he did. I'm sure he did. But anyway, continuing on. Oh, by the way, GSP, I believe, is part owner or something of Bet99 too. So, I mean, Bet99 is the sponsor here too. So anyway, I don't know why I brought that up. I guess because it was related. But anyway, whatever. Yeah, I don't want to roast GSP too hard, I guess, if I'm on his betting site. Not that I would anyway. He's a good guy. And he's a fellow Canadian. Anyway, where was I? After dozens of huge strikes that had Makwan busted up there, the ref called the fight, gave Pierce the second round TKO. And like I said, that would be the fifth. Yeah. The fifth win in a row on the night for us. So like I said, I mean, it was looking fantastic for us going into the night, but really flipped in the second half. Anyway, continuing on, Nathaniel Wood, Charles Rosa. I actually thought this was a lot closer than the odds suggested, which is why I didn't really want to talk about this last week. It also doesn't really necessarily have the huge names either. But yeah, I did have Wood going into this, obviously being the heavy favorite, and he did look pretty good in the footage as well. The only thing that had me concerned was the fact that Wood normally fights at bantamweight, and Charles Rosa had just fought at lightweight. So, when you've got somebody going up a division and somebody coming down a division at the exact same time, that tends to, almost always go in the favor of the heavier person. So like I said, I really figured this was going to be a lot closer than those odds suggested, which is why I was also a little hesitant to put it in too many parlays there, because yeah, you know, weight doesn't have, I mean, I don't want to say that weight doesn't matter at all. It definitely does, obviously. But like when somebody's as good as Wood, and Rosa has been struggling a little bit, I kind of looked past the weight a little bit, thinking that Wood would overcome it with his skill. And that is actually exactly what he did. So I was right. But I will say I was definitely nervous about this one. Anyway, both of them hesitant to let things go early. But wow, the local Wood. Why did I say that? The local Wood started the action with a couple of huge combos that had Rosa stumbled. Rosa did respond with a takedown attempt, but was shut down actually pretty easily, which is where I started to gain a little more confidence in this. Couple of minutes in, pretty clear that Wood had the huge edge in speed. He landed kicks and combos all over the place and really got huge reactions from the London crowd. Amazing. This is where the fights actually started to heat up just a little bit in terms of the crowd. I mean, it really might have been just this fight, because honestly, after that, it died again with the next matchup. But anyway, this one was fun to watch, at least. Would shred it. I mean, what was I going to say here? Yeah, Rosa was still throwing out some good combos, though. But Wood, oh my God, those leg kicks just shredded apart those legs by the end of the first round. I mean, Rosa did lock in a pretty deep submission attempt to end the round there, but I think it was pretty clear that Wood won the round because of all of the rest of that stuff, especially that leg damage. My God, I can't even imagine what that would be like to get kicked in the leg that many times and try and actually win a fight against somebody that's that good after getting kicked like that so many times. I just can't even imagine. I mean, like, I'm having a problem with my foot right now, and I can barely walk, and it's just a small thing to do with my toe, and I can barely walk. I can't even imagine getting kicked like 10, 15 times as hard as you can, and then trying to fight and move and do all these movements. Can't even imagine. I can't relate. But anyway, second round. Wood opened up with some more crisp, heavy shots, had Rosa backing up. I mean, not really much of a surprise there. Halfway through the round, Rosa looked done, honestly. The leg just destroyed. Could barely stand back up, actually, over and over again. Seriously, could barely stand up. That being said, he was actually landing some pretty good shots here and there. But yeah, I mean, obviously Wood up 2-0 after the second there. Third round, I mean, Wood opened up with the leg kicks again, dropped Rosa to the canvas. I mean, what do you expect at that point? You can't stand up. You can't stand up after that kind of damage. Avoiding all of that grappling from Rosa. Wood very careful not to get near Rosa at that point. I mean, I would do the same thing if I was him. Just stand up, get back up. Why would I fight somebody who's decent on the ground when they literally can't even stand up anymore? Obviously, make the guy stand up. Rosa was tough, started to, toughen it out with some offense there, but Wood just kept annihilating that leg, landing some combos outside of that too, and just dominant decision win. It ended up being 30-26, 30-26, and 30-27. Dominant decision win. Just really, really impressive. And you know what? I'm actually very impressed with Wood here, and I would say he should stay at 145. He really should. I mean, he was really good at bantamweight, but I think that weight cut was really, I think that's a weight cut that might be a little bit too much, because he looked really good here. Like, he didn't look out of place, especially since Rosa was supposed to be bigger anyway. He actually didn't really look that much bigger. He looked about the same, mostly the same size. I mean, Wood, I think, was a little shorter, but other than that, he looked similar in size and like he belongs at featherweight. So I think he should definitely be staying there. Next up was Mark Jacasey and Damir Hadjovic. I'm just having a problem with my nose right now. Wow. Anyway, I'm having a hard time breathing, and well, everything's going down my nose. I think it's because the fans pointed at me and it's going like directly in my face. This is where the crowd died off again quite a bit. The fight opened with some early striking from Jacasey, then moved into a heavy takedown, dragging Hadjovic to the canvas. I think we were all kind of hoping, Mark Jacasey, let's get back to that exciting striking, the explosive KOs and all that. Let's get back to that. But I mean, maybe we should have seen that coming, that he was just going to come out and just dominate in the wrestling department. But there's literally nothing other to say than he literally just sat on top of him and prevented him from getting back up for basically 14 out of the 15 minutes. Nothing really at all from either side that was really all that impressive. Yeah, the control is impressive, obviously, but I kind of agreed with Bisping while he was talking, and he was saying that, yeah, it's great. It's great that you're dominating like this, but work for a finish. You had chances. You're on top. You're clearly dominating. Let's go for a finish there. And you know what? If they maneuver out of it or whatever, you clearly have the power to take him down again and keep controlling him again. But the judges want to see, and really everybody wants to see, you at least go for a finish. You don't have to get the finish, but at least if you're going for one, then we get it. And the judges get it, and they're like, okay, we don't have to be like, oh, like, you gotta pick it up a little bit, especially when you've got a huge crowd like this, especially Jacasey being from, I think, is Manchester or something like that. So, like, let's get it going for the crowd a little bit. Try and get something kind of going. But anyway, dominant decision win by Jacasey there. All I got to say about that. Second prelim that I had talked about last week was Ludovic Klein and Mason Jones. I thought this one was going to be closer than the odds suggested here. I was going back and forth on it, but Jones has been pretty good, and then of course he had the crowd behind him, so I had to go with Jones there. He was also the heavy favorite too, but I don't really care about that as much. Yeah, so I was going with Jones on this one, and honestly, I think it was actually a pretty fair pick. I don't even really regret making the pick. He just kind of honestly lost himself the fight in the last round there. You'll see on the scorecards later that technically he would have lost anyway, even if he would have gone hard in the last round. But on my cards, at least, he kind of just blew it in the last round. Started off pretty slow, just like all the other fights on this card up until that point. Jones was pressuring forward, but it was Klein that was landing more strikes early. From there, though, Jones did start to get the clinch going, landing some good stuff there, but Klein was still doing pretty well, landing some pretty heavy strikes in between those clinches along the fence when they went into the open there. Being that both guys had landed some heavy shots, it was hard to tell who won the round. I really actually did think that Jones had the opening round. I really did. One of the judges, I think, did end up agreeing with me. Oh no, they didn't actually. All of them had it 30-27. I don't know why. I personally don't agree with that. I really had Jones in the first round, but I did say how close it was. So I guess, it really could have gone either way. But I got to say, I did have Jones winning the first round there. He had all the pressure. He had the clinch work, the clinch control. And I would say, other than that, it was pretty close. So because of those edges, I kind of gave it to Jones. But I guess, maybe the extra damage from the other strikes from Klein, maybe that's why they gave it to him. I'm not really sure. Second round. Klein was the one who landed first, dropped Jones with a massive shot. And from there, Klein used his position to land some heavy ground and pound. Jones did pretty well to recover and get back up, but Klein was still obviously in clear control at that point. Then back in the clinch, Jones went back to landing some heavy strikes along the fence, and he did pretty well to get some momentum back there. But I mean, that round was pretty clearly in favor of Klein there. So yeah, I saw it as tied here, but again, I could have seen it, I guess, 2 rounds up for Klein there. The third round, man. The third round, Jones pulled guard to jump for submission, and really, that was the huge mistake. That was really where he lost it. I mean, as soon as he did that, I was like, okay, well, he lost now. There's no way he's coming back from that. Just huge, colossal mistake there. I mean, you know that Klein is good on the ground, and he controlled earlier a little bit. So, I mean, I get you're trying to get something going, or maybe even just really try and go for that submission finish. But it would have been smarter to wait for a better shot, because that was probably the worst thing he could have done there. Klein found himself on top right away, and then really just let some ground and pound going and just kept him down there. I mean, it was a risky strategy to go for that kind of move. Didn't pay off, obviously, but I mean, I guess you kind of have to get something going. So I had it 29-28 for Klein, but 30-27, which is what they ended up scoring it. All three of them had it 30-27. I can kind of see, but I don't know. I don't know. I had it 29-28. Then we had the main card. I'm going to take a drink here. It is pretty warm in here. I need to hydrate. Stay hydrated, folks. Okay. Main card. That was Paul Craig and Volkan Oezdemir. I should have known. This is one of the pick, and I should really actually get into this each time now, if I regret the pick or not. Like I said, the Jones one that we lost, that was the only one. That was the only prelim that I lost. So again, 7-1 up until that point. I was pretty happy with that. I didn't regret the Mason Jones pick. I did regret this one after, and I should have known that ahead of time. Yeah, Craig, my God, this is also where the card started to really get much worse. Like it was actually honestly getting kind of painful to watch it. And it's not because I wanted Craig to win, obviously, because I picked him. It was honestly just because it was just so bizarre and not how you fight. Like, that's just not how it's done. Like, just the whole thing. I don't know. This was one of the fights. There were a couple fights like this. I mean, Curtis and Hermansson later too. I was thinking a similar thing, but this one, it was just like, this is terrible. Like, it's just not good. I thought Craig was, gonna get the submission. That's what I thought going into this. Especially since I actually thought Craig had decent striking before this one, but I didn't use it at all and really struggled with it. Oezdemir pressured early, pushed Craig into the fence, and that, of course, played into Craig's strategy, though. Pulled guard, tried to drag Volkan to... The fuck? Are you serious? I actually don't even know if it's running right now. Why? Wow. That was weird. Keyboard fell off. Shut my screen off. What the fuck? What a fucking show. Anyway, this is what happens when it gets hot. All chaos ensues. I don't even know how that fell, actually, now that I think about it. Anyway, moving on. I mean, he tried to get Volkan down to the canvas, and it just didn't, it just wasn't really working. I mean, the first round, it was working. I mean, scary couple of minutes for Oezdemir. nasty. I mean, a lot of really good high-level submission attempts, but eventually he did get back to his feet. And Craig still managed to drag him back down to the ground, though, really working hard for a submission. But he was on the bottom the whole time, and that can get iffy in some judges' minds. Clearly in these judges' minds, I mean, personally, and I think a lot of people actually agreed with this, I had Craig winning the first round, actually, because, I mean, Oezdemir really wasn't doing anything. I mean, all he was doing was defending submissions from Craig. Craig was obviously the one trying to get the action going and going for submissions. And he was got a couple of pretty deep ones too. So to me, I mean, I thought that was a pretty clear round for Craig there. But then that's when it started to get almost unwatchable. Craig obviously trying to get the fight to the ground in the second. He was doing some pretty decent damage on the feet as well, though. But yeah, as the round went on, really looked like Oezdemir was hesitating to move in, actually, because of Paul's wrestling. He closed out the round, though, with some heavier striking and a bit more control over Craig. A little bit tougher to score that round, but I gave it to Oezdemir. I mean, obviously. Actually, yeah, no, that's right. The second round was very similar to the first, but yeah, Oezdemir had a little bit more output and didn't get caught on the ground like that. So makes sense that Oezdemir won that round. The third round, though, I mean, that's when Oezdemir really started to pull ahead. Stopped Craig. Actually, yeah, Craig did threaten a classic arm triangle at the start of the third there, I just realized. Again, reading my notes. And that really, the same trend kind of happened over and over again, especially in that third round, where Craig would just pull guard. Oezdemir would just stand there, be like, get up, you know, or like he'd throw a couple leg kicks in, say, get up. And it would just go like that over and over and over again for the rest of the fight, to the point where, I mean, it was pretty obvious Craig literally had done nothing. So, I mean, Oezdemir, in my mind, won 29-28. The judges thought it was 30-27. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's because of that bottom position time, you know, Oezdemir on top. Oezdemir on top the whole time. Kind of makes sense, I guess. But still, I mean, if you know anything about grappling, you would have given the first round to Craig for sure. Anyway, yeah, just a really weird fight. And we're gonna have another one of those later that we'll talk about, Curtis and Hermansson, but we will move on to Molly McCann and Hannah Goldie. And I mean, really, Molly McCann, I mean, I said it right away. I mean, this was a slam dunk win for McCann. I really didn't think there was too much of a problem here. I mean, you know, Goldie we knew is strong, maybe going to get Molly going, you know, maybe get her down on the ground a little bit, maybe, but I kind of even doubted that a little bit. I just really thought, and she gets hit a lot too. Goldie gets hit a lot. So, I mean, you know, it was literally the perfect matchup for Molly McCann. So I thought she was going to get a finish here. And that is exactly what she did. McCann started to pressure early with her striking. Molly started to pick her apart there. And then Goldie, of course, started to go for the clinch along the fence, trying to avoid that, which we knew she was going to do. Couldn't get the takedown, though, which led to Molly going back to her striking. And after some more heavy striking, Goldie was pressured back into the fence, where McCann actually landed another spinning back elbow. Not like the one she landed last time, but still pretty good. And just relentless combos until the ref stopped it there. And of course, this was the first time in the night that the crowd actually lost their minds and started actually cheering. I mean, they were getting a little bit, they were getting there in the Wood and Rosa fight, but other than that, nothing. Dead silence the entire night, which is how you know how rough this card really was. Because London is a loud, passionate crowd. And if they were dead silent and even sometimes booing, you know you're doing something wrong. So, yeah, this was obviously one of the top moments of the card. Well, I mean, I would say the second best moment of the card behind Paddy, which we will talk about. But before we talk about Paddy, it was Nikita Krylov and Alexander Gustafsson. And my God, was that just killing the mood even more. Really was. I thought Gustafsson was going to win by decision, but honestly, I mean, I kind of regretted that decision. Because I should have known. I should have known that he wasn't going to come back nearly as hard as as I thought he was going to. And Krylov is also decent, so I should have expected that Krylov was going to come back like this. So I mean, this is another one that I kind of regret that I chose. And by the way, I'm saying this because it gives me kind of like some kind of accountability here. Like I actually do, I know which ones I feel bad about and that I really fucked up on. So yeah, Gustafsson and Craig would be the ones that I fucked up on this time. But honestly, I mean, and I will be completely honest about everything like that. I do stand by all of my other picks, and that does include Mason Jones and of course Tom Aspinall. I mean, Jesus, holy shit. But anyway, moving on to the actual fight. Wow, that was a depressing result. I thought it was going to be at least better than this. I mean, it could not have been more depressing, really. Yeah, Gustafsson tried to get some good strikes going early, but quickly shut down and started to get destroyed from there. Just rocked by Krylov. And then he swarmed in to get Gustafsson and finish the night early, and that was literally it. Nothing going by Gustafsson at all. Just sad. Oh man, wow. Wow, was that bad. Yeah, so first round TKO for Nikita Krylov. I mean, impressive, and he looked really good. You got to give it to him, but I mean, I think the real story here is yikes. Definitely, I would say Gustafsson should hang it up now. I mean, I like the guy and he's exciting, but you know what? If you're losing like that to somebody that I didn't even really think was necessarily that amazing, yeah, you're not fighting anybody in the top 15. I can guarantee you that. So, I mean, unless you're looking for some legacy matchups, I just don't see. Yeah, I just don't see it. And he said he wanted to make a title run. So, I mean, that's definitely done. So, yeah, I think just riding off into the sunset would be a fantastic way for Gustafsson to go now. Just, yeah, sad to see. The next one, though, Paddy Pimblett and Jordan Levitt. I mean, I knew this was going to be closer than the odds suggested. And I mean, well, actually, the odds were fairly close on this, but I thought there was a pretty clear way for Paddy to win this. And I mean, I think that was the striking, which is exactly what he was trying to do early on. Anyway, let's get right into that fight. As expected, Paddy did pressure forward early, which is what we thought. Lit Levitt up with some big combos. From there, though, Levitt actually started to use his fantastic wrestling. And I said this going into this, that he's a lot better than people give him credit for. I actually really do like Jordan Levitt. He's funny. He's entertaining. He's a really good fighter. Just not necessarily that good at striking. If he can get some striking going, my God, this kid would be insanely good. But yeah, took Paddy down there. Maybe not taking Paddy's submission game seriously, though. He did let his guard down and allowed Paddy to lock in a pretty deep guillotine. And you can't do that. You can't do that against Paddy because he's a lot stronger down there than people will give him credit for. Much to the dismay of the crowd, though, Levitt was dominating in the clinch, pinning Paddy to the cage, shooting for takedowns. Paddy was just kind of really struggling early on, which, I mean, is kind of what we expect at this point, too. I mean, that's what he's done in all of the other ones, and especially considering how good of a grappler Jordan Levitt really is here. Paddy was defending the takedowns well after that, though, and threatening some submissions, actually, but definitely struggling with all that heavy pressure coming back at him. Just as the round was about to close, though, Pimblett finally had a moment of his own, dragged Levitt down, threatened multiple submissions there. And really, it's tough to kind of score a round like that. It really is, because it's back and forth like that. But honestly, I kind of was giving it to Levitt. I actually kind of did, because he controlled a lot more of the round that way. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of did. But you know what? Pimblett did end the round, though, with huge momentum. So, I mean, either way you went with that, it made sense to me. It was really that even. The second round, Paddy trying to get that striking going. Levitt stuck to the game plan, pinned Paddy along the fence. Then it was Paddy who turned the tables, locked in a submission from his feet. From there, landed a massive knee, which apparently actually really hurt. It landed so hard that it actually hurt Paddy, and he was feeling it hours after. It was that hard of a knee. I mean, it was huge, a huge knee there. And obviously dragged Levitt down thanks to that. Dropped him, actually. He didn't even need to. Then used that position to his advantage and took Levitt's back, locked in the deep rear naked choke, and no way to defend the submission because he had one of his arms pinned back there. Levitt had to tap there, giving Paddy another insane submission win. I mean, what an entertaining guy. He's never in a boring fight, and he said that too. I mean, I totally agree. Never in a boring fight. Just incredible. And you know what? I think Jordan Levitt proved a lot of haters wrong too, and I like that because, like I said, I thought I knew Levitt was going to be good. He even surprised me a little bit with how good he was, but yeah, good for him. I mean, I think he really went up there too, and I think he's going to get some better matchups now too. I really hope he does, and they keep him around because he's young, he's really good. Just get better in the striking. That's all I got to say. Just improve the striking just a little bit. After that, we had the co-main. That was Jack Hermansson, Chris Curtis. This to me was the closest one, and I had no idea what was going to be happening here, and I don't think anybody really knew what was going to be happening. I mean, I think the obvious kind of route for both guys would be, I mean, Chris Curtis in the striking, of course, and then Hermansson probably with grappling. I think that's kind of what we all thought going into it. So I had Curtis by finish because, I mean, he's so good, and he's got heavy strikes. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of thought Curtis, I mean, I wouldn't say he was a lock going into it, obviously, but I did think he had a pretty good edge going into this. I really did. But this was the other fight I was talking about that was just bizarre, just really weird to watch. And I just realized I actually did I not finish writing about it? Wow, I actually didn't finish writing about that fight. Oh well. Anyway, basically all you got to know is that the entire time, really, Hermansson was backing up and moving a lot, just being really evasive and not necessarily landing a whole lot of his own, just kind of avoiding everything from Curtis. And that was about it. I mean, it was just really bizarre to watch. Yeah, I don't even know. It was just really one of the weirdest fights I've ever seen. And then, of course, at the end, Curtis lost his shit. And you know what? Honestly, I kind of agreed. I was with him at that point. I didn't think it looked, I didn't think Curtis looked dumb for doing that at all. To be honest, I would have been pretty pissed too if I was him. I mean, Hermansson just didn't really do a whole lot. He kind of was just moving backwards and winning by defense, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. It was really weird. But yeah, 30-20, I believe it was 30-27 for Hermansson and over Chris Curtis there. Really weird. And you know what? I actually will say, though, Curtis definitely did have the chance to win that, which is also actually why I don't regret making this pick, because this is another one that I lost, obviously. And I don't regret this pick, actually, because really, I actually think if they did this again, I think Chris Curtis would probably win. But it was just such a bizarre thing that even Chris Curtis said himself, I had no response to it, and I didn't change what I was doing at all. And that's true. He did the same thing for all 15 minutes, never switched it up, never did anything to combat what Hermansson was showing him, which was just basically moving backwards and side to side. You know, I think there were a lot of things that Chris Curtis could have done differently that would have won him the fight pretty easily. So, I mean, I actually kind of stand by the pick, and I think he would probably win if they rematched again. But yeah, just a bizarre. Just, I don't even know what else to say other than it was just really weird. And that, of course, once again, really put a damper on the mood there, because not a fan-friendly way to fight. I mean, it's exactly what Holly Holm was doing too before. A lot of backing up, moving out of the way, getting in a couple quick shots, moving back out of the way, jumping in with a couple of shots, and just repeat, rinse and repeat the entire time, and then clinch up along the fence. That's it. Like, it's not exciting. It's not exciting at all. But it can be effective, especially if they don't change what they're doing, which is exactly the problem that Curtis had there. Anyway, yeah, bizarre. And then to really cap off and make this night bad, like even worse than it was looking already, because we thought, okay, well, there's no way this last one's going to disappoint. You've got Curtis Blaydes, Tom Aspinall. Aspinall is just an absolute tank running through that division. I mean, he is insanely good. So, I mean, like most people, of course, I went with Aspinall getting a finish here, because, I mean, I really don't think Blaydes was going to be able to do a whole lot to defend against Aspinall. He's just way too good. And that's no knock on Blaydes. Blaydes is good too, but Aspinall to me is just way up there. He is so much better than everybody, really, except for when you get up there, you know, like Ngannou, Stipe, and then eventually probably John Jones. That, to me, he's in that kind of conversation. Blaydes, not necessarily. Anyway, and you know what? Just as it looked like, I mean, we all know what happened, but just as it looked like Aspinall was going to start actually doing some heavy damage, he was doing really well. I mean, clearly on his way to start. I honestly think he was probably a couple minutes away from doing something crazy and maybe even getting a finish. I mean, he was really lighting him up there. Out of absolutely nowhere, Aspinall kicked the thigh all the way up there, the thigh, the medius part, and just the knee gave out immediately. Didn't step weird on it. Didn't do anything crazy. It didn't even hit a bad part of Blaydes' leg. Didn't hit a bad part of Aspinall's leg. It was just a clean, perfect kick, and ruptured the knee there, or dislocated the knee, or something, did something with the knee. I think it was dislocated. That's right. Yeah, just another freak accident for this second week in a row to just destroy the card. Yeah. There's really nothing other to say than that's just a horrible way to end. And of course, we lost that bet too, because technically it was an injury. It wasn't like, you know, a no contest. It was technically, you know, part of the fight. So technically it's a TKO, even though it obviously wasn't. But yeah, I don't know. Like there's nothing you can do to predict that at all, obviously. And I mean, once again, it really just, that was the whole tone of the night as it is. I mean, you had a bunch of boring decisions where nothing was really happening. Then you had Craig doing weird stuff that wasn't working at all. By the way, I'm probably not going to be picking Craig again. If he's fighting anybody that's half decent, I'm not picking him. Because now they all know how to fight him. You just don't engage with him. You literally just back up and he's screwed. That's it. That's the strategy now. But yeah, then you had that. Then you had Gustafsson getting knocked out in like 2 minutes. And then you had the Hermansson Curtis fight. That was bizarre and terrible to watch. And then it was Blaydes and Aspinall, which ended in like a minute because of that garbage again for the second week in a row. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. Just a bizarre, just weird shit's happening. I don't even know what else to say. Weird. So it was also actually made it hard to pick out the bonuses. And by the way, I actually just realized I never even posted these because honestly, I was just so disgusted by the whole night, to be honest, where I was just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm not posting these bonuses. I might, when I eventually make a website, I will put the bonuses on there from this night. I'll put all the bonuses on there. But yeah, I will say them here though. I gave the KO of the night. I think it was pretty clearly Nikita Krylov. You can't knock out Alexander Gustafsson in a couple of minutes and knock out a bonus, especially on that kind of card. Jesus. So obviously Nikita Krylov getting the KO bonus. Sub of the night, Paddy Pimblett for sure. I mean, insane fight. Levitt is very, very good on the ground. So I didn't even see a submission coming, to be honest. I really thought it was going to be a TKO. So getting the submission there, very impressive. And then brawl of the night, no doubt in my mind, that was obviously Pimblett and Levitt. It was really the only fight of the whole night where it was like, oh, this is good to watch. Like I'm really, really enjoying this. Except for maybe Wood and Rosa. That was my second choice, but this one was a clear favorite for me. And the UFC didn't even give out a fight of the night bonus, which tells you right there how bad it was. If they couldn't even find a fight in how many fights was that? 14? There were 14 fights on the card, and the UFC couldn't find one in there to give a bonus to. That really just tells you how disappointing the night was overall. But yeah, I gave it to Pimblett and Levitt. And the most valuable fighter to me is Molly McCann. I think that was the only choice, to be honest, out of anybody on this card, even Paddy, because it's hard. It is hard for, you don't see that many women's finishes, and she just did twice in a row. Both of them, I mean, maybe not the best, but they're still tough. And she finished them both. And I mean, like, she's pretty good. So, I mean, I think she's clearly ready for somebody in the top 15. And she's saying Antonina Shevchenko. Maybe, I think that would be an interesting matchup. I really do. I think that would be definitely the hardest challenge she's had recently, for sure. But, could be interesting. I think it would be interesting to see, and I'd like to see that. But yeah. So yeah, clearly I went with her there. And honestly, really the second most and exciting moment of the night behind what Paddy did. So just every reason to give it to Molly McCann here. And the only reason I wouldn't give it to Pimblett is because like he really wasn't doing that well before that. And I still don't think he can compete in the top 15. So to me, that wasn't as impressive as what McCann did, even though Paddy was more entertaining and flashy and all that kind of stuff. And obviously hilarious. But yeah, had to go with Molly McCann there. Before we go on our break, we'll quickly talk about the Contender Series. We won't talk too much about it. And then, of course, we'll talk about the pay-per-view. But we'll talk quickly about the 4 fights. I mean, another disappointing event. I mean, we had UFC London. Then we had this. I mean, how much... I honestly don't think you could have had a worse Contender Series, because I've seen a lot of them. I really have, and it's always good. Like, seriously, I mean, there's always at least 2 or 3 fights on there that are like, wow, that was good. They're gonna get a contract. And, every once, there's always 1 or 2 fights that are kind of like, okay, nah, it was kind of boring, but whatever. And those people don't get finishes, or don't get contracts. But last year, I mean, we were so spoiled getting 5, sometimes 6 contracts in a night because the fights are so good, to then opening with this. How I really don't think you could have had a worse night. I mean, 1 contract on the night and only 1 exciting fight. Not only that, you only had 4 fights, and that, I don't think that's ever happened. Not, at least while I'm watching the Contender Series. I don't think that's ever happened. So, I mean, just brutal luck to open the week, getting the 5th fight canceled. It was supposed to be Basharat, which would have been really cool to watch. I was actually excited to see him fight because I think he's pretty good from what I saw. So I was getting excited to watch that. But then his opponent misses by 10 pounds. 10 pounds. That's absolutely brutal. That is horrendously bad. Like, don't even accept a fight if you think you're it. If you need to cut 46 pounds and you're fighting a bantamweight, hey, maybe don't accept the fight. maybe ask for a featherweight fight. How about that? Or maybe start cutting weight earlier. I mean, just all around, just horrible. Yeah. So that was terrible. So that was a terrible start to the week. And then we had 3 not great decisions leading off the card. I mean, maybe I won't go into it too much. We're kind of already behind as it is. I mean, the first one was a split decision with Alessandro Costa and Juan Andres Luna. By the way, I actually went 4 for 4 on this card, so I was pretty happy because I got all my bets. But yeah, as a spectator though, not happy. I was not amused, and neither was Dana White, obviously, as I will get into later. But right after this. But yeah, split decision. Honestly, neither guy really landing a whole lot. I think there was something like maybe 10 or 15 strikes landed in the first round, which at flyweight, I mean, this was at flyweight. So you got to realize how bad that is. A flyweight fight with, 10 or 15 strikes in the opening round. That's bad. That's slow. And, it's the Contender Series, people. Like, we're trying to get finishes here. Like, we're not talking. This isn't practice. No. It's like this is a big deal. Like, people need to show up and get finishes here. You can't throw 10 or 15 strikes in the opening round as flyweights. Even as heavyweights, you don't want to do that. Like, that's even pushing it. So yeah, horrible start there. And really that just kept going. And I mean, really the only moments that either guy had, it was Costa. He was landing the bigger shots for sure. So I definitely had it as Costa, and that is obvious. I mean, like I said, I was 4 for 4, so obvious I did have him. But yeah, I mean, and I said here he did look good, because what I will say, I debriefed each fight. If you want to look at the article, this is what I'm going to be doing each week. I obviously go through a run of what happened in the fights, but also I say, do I think this person deserved a contract? And in this case, no, I really didn't think so. Even before, and I write it down as I'm watching the fights. So I mean, this isn't influenced at all by what Dana White ends up doing with his contracts. But personally, I actually 100% agreed with Dana on this. I only gave out 1 contract as well here. I wasn't impressed at all here. I mean, Costa looked good, and he certainly has the potential to eventually do some real damage in the UFC. But personally, I wouldn't be giving a contract here. I didn't think he deserved one. And it really reinforced the fact that it ended up in a split decision. I mean, I'm sure at some point Dana White's given out a contract to a split decision, but when it's an exciting split decision, maybe, but when it's like this, where it's almost like I mean, it's not quite that bad. I was gonna say it's like a Rose and Sparza kind of split decision. It wasn't that bad, but it was still, it was still like, okay, get something going here, guys. Yeah, and the UFC has a lot of exciting flyweights, so why bother? Like, I just didn't think he deserved a contract for doing that in an already exciting division where people are explosive. Like, every single flyweight in the UFC that I've seen would destroy this guy. I mean, destroy either one of these guys because they'd be so explosive. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it wasn't really that impressive to me. But that being said, I did think Costa was good enough that he could come back after a fight or two, or maybe even right away on the Contender Series and do something else, do another fight, take something more interesting. I don't know, and just really go for it. I don't know, but he's got to do something a little bit better, or at least prove that he's really going to just keep winning, and then they give him a shot in the UFC after that. If he can do something here. Then it was Dennis Bazookia and Khalil Romero. I was kind of excited to see what Bazookia was going to do. I mean, it's a cool name, Bazookia, it's cool. But, and he was on the Contender Series before. So I was expecting more from him for sure. And, he was doing well. He landed some pretty good things here and there. But again, it was exciting to watch. I will say this was a little bit better to watch as a fight. But you know what? Honestly, I thought that both of them would be kind of screwed if they went to the UFC. It was just the defense for me. That's what I kept seeing. Romero, if Romero had faced a striker, like a UFC striker, he would have been finished. And if Bazookia would have faced a UFC grappler, he probably would have been finished, or he would have been dominated the entire time because he was struggling in those grappling situations. So to me, neither one of them really looked to be UFC level. And I mean, Bazookia looked decent, but just the grappling. I mean, he just didn't do. Yeah, I don't know. He just wasn't really doing well enough, not convincing enough for sure to get a contract, especially when Dana White even specifically said he doesn't look at other fights before this. If you want to get a contract, you have to show up on the night. And that should be obvious anyway. He shouldn't have to say that. Like, that should be pretty obvious. But yeah, and I agree again. I wouldn't have given a contract here either. But I thought this is one where I thought Dana might have given one, only because the featherweights, there's not a whole lot of, well, there are some pretty good featherweights, obviously, but they're kind of lacking somebody that's maybe gonna do something. I don't know, in breaking into the top 15. So I kind of thought maybe he was going to give out a contract to really develop the division even more, but no, I don't know. Yeah. Wow, I really fucked this up again. I really messed up these articles. Wow. I hope Josh fixed these. Anyway, moving on. Oh, actually, I don't think I sent that article. Whoopsie, I didn't send it anyway. So the article's not even posted yet anyway, so not to worry. It will be up tonight or tomorrow, though, the Contender Series one. Anyway, moving on, the third fight. Again, nothing crazy. I mean, Turkali, I was even kind of worried about him going into this. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of footage on this guy going into it. He looked good in what they were showing. I mean, he had some okay stand-up and he had some power, but they didn't really get to show a whole lot in any of the footage that I saw, and he was undefeated. So I had Turkali, but I knew this was going to be closer than people thought, especially considering the other guy actually did look good, Acacio Dos Santos. Yeah, and you know what? It was just another weird kind of boring fight where not much really happened, really. The only thing, I mean, Turkali was incredible at getting those the grappling going, clinching along the fence, controlling Dos Santos. Did a fantastic job of that. I think he ended up getting like 12 minutes of control time, so he clearly won the fight. But you know what? He never once even threatened a finish at all. There were no real submission threats, no real ground and pound threats. He really was just holding him there. So it was kind of like, well, you're not going to get a contract for doing that either. Like, let's get going. Let's go for a finish here. Like, what are we doing here? You know, you want a contract, go for a finish. I don't know. So again, I didn't think there was going to be a contract here, but I also could have maybe seen Dana White going for this one only because of the personality of Turkali. But you know what? Dana White obviously didn't know about the personality either anyway, because he didn't care about that. He was just going for how they performed in the cage, which is, again, I think that's how you should be doing it. But, you know, you do need more personalities. So they could have gone with that and hoped that Turkali developed some finishing techniques, because he was amazing at getting the control, but didn't know what to do with it. So I thought maybe they were going to go with that, but yeah, not so much. And then the last fight is where it really actually started to liven up. Obviously, the only exciting fight of the night here was Joe Pyfer, Ozzy Diaz. By the way, surprisingly, the closest one in the odds on the night, which to me, I even thought when I was making the bets, I thought that was a little weird because Pyfer had been on the Contender Series and only lost because his arm was like literally his arm. I don't know if it broke or was dislocated, but it went like the complete opposite direction as he put his hand on the mat. And that was against Stoltzfus, by the way. And really, he was destroying in that fight before that. Like, he was absolutely dismantling Dustin Stoltzfus. So, I mean, the fact that he was already beating somebody that is in the UFC, I mean, and Ozzy Diaz to me didn't even really look that good. So to me, I thought this was a no-brainer. I thought it was Joe Pyfer all day long. So yeah, I mean, we cashed in on that one for sure. Yeah, so what he did, he made the first move, being more aggressive, of course, landed a huge calf kick, had Diaz wobbled early because of that. I mean, he's just a heavy striker in general, Pyfer. He ran in, dragged Diaz to the ground, started to work for some different submissions, locked up a pretty deep one from Diaz's back. He did get out of it, though, but was still being controlled by Pyfer. And as the round continued on, Diaz actually did manage to reverse positions. Why do I have this in front of me? What was I saying? Diaz actually did manage... The fuck? Everything's falling off of that. This is gonna fall now too. There we go. Both guys were pretty even on the feet, trading jabs for the rest of the round. It was tight, but I mean, you know, with all the damage, kind of had to give the round to Pyfer. The second round, Pyfer landed a big hook, had Diaz stumbling backwards. And then after some back and forth striking, Pyfer landed another huge one, just an absolute nuke of a hook, dropped Diaz on his back immediately. Didn't actually want to follow up, but the ref wasn't jumping in, so he decided to go and just slammed his head into the canvas. Brutal KO win there. I mean, the ref really could have saved him there. He could have stopped because, I mean, it was pretty obvious what was going to happen next. Yeah, and got an easy contract win. I mean, there was no doubt in anybody's mind that Pyfer was going to win the contract there. Just, and that's what you need. And that's what we've been expecting in the Contender Series, is that. So I hope from now on, you know, all of the other weeks we have, you know, 3 or 4 fights every single card where we see that kind of intent behind it. Because I mean, the three opening fights here before that did not have that intent. So anyway, of course, I already said it. The contract results: Costa did not get a contract. Bazookia did not get a contract. Turkali did not get a contract. And Joe Pyfer got the contract, of course. And what I'm going to be doing every week on top of this is I'm going to be giving my power rankings. I couldn't come up with a better name from it. So honestly, I just use the I just use the name that the UFC gives for Paul Felder when he does his power rankings. There's no other way to do it. I don't know. I wasn't creative enough at this point. I mean, look, I'm one of the most creative people I know, but even I couldn't come up with a better name than that for now. Maybe I'll think of one later. But yeah, BLÜ's power rankings. I mean, number one, do I even need to say it? It was obviously Joe Pyfer. For me, I had Bazookia in second because I really thought he was showing some pretty good things, but struggled enough in the grappling that I didn't want to give him the contract. So, I mean, but still a clear second for me. Right below that, I actually had Turkali because of how dominant he was at getting control. I mean, like I said, I think it was almost 12 minutes of control time. So you got to be pretty good to get that level of control time. Just didn't get a finish. So, if he has the finishing power, if he learns some more submissions on the ground, or even learns how to posture up properly and get a TKO, he's going to be very, very dangerous. So I think we'll see him back again at some point. And he is my third place for the power rankings. And I think that's pretty clear. And then fourth, I had the other winner, Alessandro Costa. Also pretty good, but just didn't really show a whole lot, anything all that impressive. And then in fifth, there was no fifth fight, but I do want to give a top 5 every single time. So I ended up giving it to Khalil Romero because you know what? He was actually pretty good at fighting Bazookia. And he did the best, I would say, out of all of the people who lost. So that's why I gave it to him. But he actually was doing fairly well. He just couldn't really necessarily compete with the striking of Bazookia. So it's kind of the opposite for him. He had the grappling, but didn't really have the striking. So I went with Khalil Romero in fifth. And that was my top 5 in the power rankings for the first week of the Contender Series. Like I said, I can't get worse than that. I honestly don't think you could have a worse Contender Series. Like I said, I mean, you had one of the dumbest cancellations I've ever seen. 10 pounds overweight for a bantamweight. That's stupid. Like, that's beyond stupid. And then, on a shortened fight card as it is, because normally you see 6 fights on these. So 4 fights, abysmal. And then 3 of them were just not all that entertaining. So, I mean, you couldn't really get any worse. So only up from here. I can't wait to see the rest of them. I think there's 10 of them. So second week coming up next week. Looking forward to that. But anyway, we've got an hour and 20 minutes in and we haven't even talked about this card, but we will take a quick break with this ad. I will have a sip of water here. And we'll be back with UFC 277. I will see you after this break.
Allow me to introduce High Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a f***ing hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating victory or drinking to defeat, High Stick Vodka is better after every shot. Visit us at highstickvodka.com. It also comes in this regular bottle. Celebrate victory. Drink responsibly.
And we're back with the pay-per-view UFC 277. My God, it's hot in here. And I almost finished my entire water bottle. My God, this is a struggle. Anyway, we'll jump right into that main card and we will open up with Magomed Ankalaev and Anthony Smith. And I got to say right off the bat here, this is a lot closer than people are giving it credit for. And the odds are definitely a little more, well, way more one-sided than they should be, I would say. But I think they're headed in the right direction, though. I will say that. I do have Ankalaev winning, like most people, I would say. But again, it's a lot closer than they're making it seem. I mean, Ankalaev been incredible, only lost one fight. That was in his debut. And that was actually to Craig by the submission that we were talking about earlier. But other than that, he hasn't lost yet. And you know what? He just recently beat Santos as well. Whereas Smith won 3 in a row, all first round finishes, by the way. And again, oh, never mind. Thought I made a typo there. He's only fought ranked contenders for his last 10 or so, which is insane. I think they've all been ranked for his last 10 fights. So that's pretty impressive, whereas Ankalaev hasn't really had that. Not that I'm saying that matters a whole lot, but it does play a little bit of a factor, you got to think. I was going back and forth on this because Smith really does have the skills to do some real damage here to Ankalaev, especially if he can get the dominant position on the ground. The problem is that he tends to get hit quite a bit when the strikers are fast, and he also tends to struggle getting controlled by heavy grapplers. And unfortunately for him, Magomed is actually both of those things. He is a quick striker and a heavy grappler. So it's not looking good, only for that reason. I mean, like I said, I'm really sure that Smith is going to make this an interesting fight. And it's not going to be completely dominant, but I got to think, especially in a 3-round fight, Ankalaev has a much better chance of winning this. Yeah, I would say that Magomed, he's probably going to pressure forward with all those jabs. Doesn't really care too much about Smith's offense. Going to clinch up with Smith along the fence, where Smith struggles a little bit against these kind of fighters. And he's going to take him down and control him. I really don't think... a lot of people are thinking, he's going to get a finish. He's going to finish Smith or whatever. Honestly, he might. He very much might do that. But to me, I would actually say the much safer bet here is a decision, because Smith is really probably one of the hardest light heavyweights to finish, if not the hardest one to finish. So, I just don't think that Ankalaev is going to get a finish, but I do think that he's going to control Smith to win I wouldn't say maybe a fairly dominant decision. Let's go with that. Where's my banner for Bet99, which, by the way, isn't even the right link anymore, but we'll throw it up there anyway. Just to prove to people that we're still, I don't even know. I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, that we still care. How about that? Yeah, Ankalaev minus 550 going into this. I mean, I think that's definitely a little more one-sided than it should be. I was thinking like minus 250, minus 300, somewhere around there, I think is pretty reasonable. Minus 550, that's a little much. Anthony Smith plus 400. And you know what? If you're thinking maybe Smith has a chance, you could really go on an underdog, because like these are wild odds, I will say. So it's not even that insane to bet on Smith here, just for a couple bucks. But I would say, especially for a parlay, the way to go is, pretty clearly to go with Ankalaev. The over-under is actually at 2.5, and it is favoring the over one at minus 150. But at minus 150, that's still a little bit of action that you can get there. Minus 150. It's not at the minus 200 range yet, so I think that's still a good way to go. Put a couple bucks on. But again, could see a finish plus 116. Maybe. Either want to play the numbers or go with what you think is the most likely thing to happen. I always go with the thing that I think is most likely to happen, which would be Ankalaev and over. So Ankalaev by decision would be a good prop bet, obviously. But yeah, if you're just playing the numbers here, maybe you'd want to go with the under, and maybe you'd want to go with Smith. It really depends on what kind of a bettor you are. The next one, to me, I actually find this one of the most exciting ones of the night for sure. Alexandre Pantoja and Alex Perez. Oh my God, is that insane? What a matchup. I mean, I would say we're seriously going to be seeing the top, like 4 of the top 5 most dangerous people in the flyweights, with the most dangerous not being here, which is of course Davis and Figueiredo. Because I mean, he should strike the fear into anybody below 155 pounds, because he is insane, an absolute lunatic. But anyway, we're not talking about Figueiredo today. But all I'm saying is these other 4 guys are insanely good, explosive, dangerous, and these are going to be 2 crazy flyweight fights that we're going to see here. And it starts off with these 2, Pantoja and Perez. Former champ. Oh, actually. Oh, yeah. Yeah. This to me is probably going to be one of the next title contenders, I would say. I think that's the pretty clear way to go with this, because Pantoja, he's been winning so much that it's kind of like, who else would you give it to? Because Askarov just lost to Kaikar France. Pantoja is insanely good. So, which other way would you go with this other than giving a title shot to the winner of these 2? After, of course, you unify the belt with Figueiredo and whoever wins in the interim title. But anyway, or maybe they'll give another one to the winner of this anyway. Anyway, whatever. We'll talk about this, of course, after the fights are done. But anyway, yeah, I mean, this matchup is seriously, I think, guaranteed to produce an absolutely insane fight. I really do. Pantoja is dangerous literally everywhere. He's beaten Royval, Schnell, and Manel Kopp, and his only loss really recently. Oh, his only losses recently have been to Figueiredo. Actually, yeah, his only UFC losses, I should say, were Figueiredo and Askarov, who are literally 2 of the best. So, he's pretty good, pretty good. And on the other side, Perez has had 6 canceled fights in a row. 6 fights in a row of cancellations. That is so unlucky. All the way back to 2020. So honestly, I don't even remember really watching him. I don't even know if I have seen him fight, except for, of course, when I did the research this week. But before that, like actually watching it as a fan, I don't think I've ever seen him. Anyway, first round loss to Figueiredo at that point, though. And before that, only lost to Joseph Benavidez. So he's also pretty good. But, based on those losses alone, I mean, you got to think that Pantoja is by far the more dangerous guy here. But again, it is super close, super, super close, because they both fight at an insane pace and anything can happen at that point. Yeah, he just doesn't seem to be quite on the same level because, Perez does have fantastic striking and very good grappling, but Pantoja's grappling is some of the best grappling I've ever seen. And his striking is also pretty heavy. So yeah, I would say it's pretty clear choice here would be Pantoja. That doesn't mean that Perez can't get a win though. Pantoja has a habit of getting hit quite a bit by quick strikers like Perez. So there's definitely a chance. There is an avenue for Perez to win this fight with his striking, but I don't know. I think Pantoja is probably just going to end up walking through it, landing some huge shots of his own, taking the fight to the ground. And I actually think he's going to get a finish here. I'm going for Pantoja by finish here because you know what? He was actually, I will say I'm saying that also because Perez was caught in multiple submissions by Figueiredo before he was eventually submitted by Figueiredo. So he does get caught in those submissions, and you can't do that against somebody as good as Pantoja. So if he hasn't fixed that up, he's going to get submitted for sure. So that's how I'm seeing it. Pantoja minus 189 right now. That's the clear way to go. Perez plus 154. Over under is actually at over under 2.5 right now. I see what they're saying. Because they are flyweights, but these guys are so good and so powerful that I actually really do think there's going to be a finish on either side here. Well, actually, I don't think Pantoja is going to get finished probably, but I do think there's going to be a finish. I do think there's going to be a sub. My throat's getting all fucked up now. I'm just losing it all together now. So I think it actually is worth the risk. Plus 116 right now to get the under 2.5. So plus 116, I'm very much willing to put a couple bucks on that one. Then we've got, I would say, the most unpredictable matchup on the card. There's really no telling what's going to happen here whatsoever. I mean, when you've got two massive heavyweights that have one punch power, literally anything can happen. That being said, I think that Derek Lewis is actually the pretty clear choice here. If you watch the tape, yes, if you look at the records, Pavlovich is the obvious choice here. I mean, what is he at here? He's wow, my throat. He's had 3 first-round KOs in a row leading up to this. But you know what? Guess who else did? Dawkins. And we all know how that happened. How that ended, I mean. And you know what? Honestly, I think the same thing is going to happen. He only has basically a right hand. That's it. He has one strike. That's how he wins his fights. And that's it. Whereas Lewis, he doesn't even have as much power as Lewis. So I don't even know if he has the full capability of even knocking Lewis out. Whereas Lewis obviously has enough power to do it. He's also got some wrestling and some grappling in there. He doesn't like to use it very often, but he can. So to me, I think, and his clinch work is just absolutely insane. I mean, that's how he gets a lot of his KOs, are up very close and then knocking somebody out like that. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. I'm going with Lewis by finish. I really do think he's going to get back in the win column again here, finally redeeming himself in Texas. So yeah, I'm going with Lewis at plus 112 too. I mean, that's a no-brainer for an underdog. My God. I mean, remember, he's only lost. I mean, Tuivasa, he was destroying Tuivasa, by the way, before that. And then he lost to Gane. Like, okay, like, that's a fair loss. Gane is always a fair loss, and he was destroying Tuivasa. Because if he hits Pavlovich with what he was hitting Tuivasa with, Pavlovich is out of there, no problem. So, I just think this is a no-brainer one here. Lewis plus 112. I mean, my God, that's a steal. That is a steal on the odds. So yes, I will definitely be putting some money on that one. The over-under, I mean, I don't think anybody would be surprised. It's set at 1.5 rounds, and the under is at minus 160. I mean, I think that's the pretty clear way to go. Maybe, they both tough it out for a while, and you see a KO at the end of the second. So you could definitely cash in on the plus 125 at the over 1.5. But yeah, Lewis first round KO doesn't seem all that surprising. And because of the huge reach advantage, Pavlovich could also get a first round KO. So I would actually even say, like I said, the minus 160 for under 1.5 may be the safer bet. But, if you're looking for value, over 1.5 at plus 125 really isn't looking that bad for value. It's really not. So you could even add a couple bucks on there. It's all up to how you want to bet these things. But yeah, I like to always go for what I think is exactly what's going to happen. The co-main. Finally, we've got the title fights. My God, we're running late here. as expected. I was, that's how it's going to be almost every week now. We've got a card, Contender Series, and another card. It's going to be long. I'll try and figure out a way of cutting down on these things. Maybe I just won't even talk about the ones that aren't interesting, or the ones that I didn't talk about in the leading up to it. So if I don't talk about a prelim, maybe I just won't bring it up in the stream. I don't know. If there was a bunch of you here, I'd take a poll, but that's not happening. So anyway, I'll figure it out. Because I don't want to be here too long either. I mean, I like talking about this stuff and I love being here talking about it, but it's a long process, and I don't know if it's necessarily worth it for everybody, including myself, to do that. So we'll see. I mean, we're still a young show. We don't have a whole lot of viewers, so we'll be figuring things out for quite a while anyway. Anyway, interim flyweight title, Brandon Moreno, Kai Kara France. It's so close. This one is really close, but you gotta go with Moreno. I mean, I think I really wholeheartedly believe that Figueiredo is the best flyweight maybe ever. Actually, I don't know about that. I don't know if he's maybe the best flyweight ever, but he's definitely the best flyweight right now, because he is scary dangerous. So, I mean, the fact that Moreno showed up and fought him 3 times, and honestly may have actually beaten him 2 of those times, that really tells you how good Moreno actually is. And I think people are kind of forgetting that. And Kara France, he was really struggling with the grappling of Askarov and really was almost submitted a couple times. And honestly, may not have even won that last fight. It was pretty iffy for me, to be honest. And I watched it again and I was still kind of thinking I don't know. I was pretty tight. It was pretty tight on the score there. So, I mean, Moreno submitted Davis and Figueiredo. What else do you need to say? I think Moreno's very clearly going to submit Kai Kara France here. I love Kai Kara France. He's a super nice guy, great fighter, but I gotta say, this is not his kind of matchup. And yeah, I really do think Moreno is gonna, especially with 5 rounds to work with, I think he's gonna get a submission win here. So -220, I'm riding with Moreno all day on this one. I'm even gonna throw it in a parlay, actually, probably. Kai Kara France +175. Yeah, I mean, I would say the odds are fair, but yeah, actually, I would even say they probably deserve to be a little bit higher, maybe -300, somewhere around there. But I see where they're coming from on this. And remember too, Moreno was full on Davis and Figueiredo is by far the hardest hitter in the division and the best submission artist in the division. He's simultaneously the number 1 in both of those. So, what's Kai Kara France going to do that Moreno didn't see from Davis and Figueiredo? I just don't see whatever, what is he going to do that Figueiredo didn't do? That's what I keep thinking. Yeah. So to me, yeah. And you know what? I would actually even go, the over under on this is actually 4.5 rounds. So they're seeing a decision here. I genuinely don't see it that way. I really, really don't. I think you're going to see a submission win for Moreno. So I'm going under 4.5. I'm actually thinking it's probably going to be in the 4th round, maybe in the 5th round, but probably more likely the 3rd or the 4th round. That for Moreno, that's what I'm seeing. So I'm going for sure with the under on this one. And considering, again, how well Moreno did against Figueiredo, I think it's a complete no-brainer to at least put a few dollars on the under 4.5. Because Kara France hasn't done anything to suggest otherwise, that he won't be able to do that. So this one, though, the next title fight, Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena, I gotta say, I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think after this. I really don't. Because, I really, it's tough. It's really tough because, I watched a couple of their previous fights too. And I mean, there's no need to watch Amanda. I mean, I did watch Amanda Nunes. And she's insanely good. And I noticed too, like everybody else, and like Amanda Nunes herself, and Juliana Pena, actually, she didn't show up in the second fight the same as she normally does. And I saw the interview. I saw the interview with, I can't remember who it was, but she even explained like there was a lot of things going into this fight that were not good. And she even said she considered dropping the fight, but she just thought, well, you know what? I'm so good, basically. Like she didn't say that, but she was kind of hinting at it. Like, I just kind of thought like, oh, just do the fight anyway, because I'm still confident I'm going to win. That's basically what she was saying. But afterwards, then, after losing, she was kind of like, well, maybe I shouldn't have done it because I was definitely not 100% going into this. This time, though, she is 100%, at least according to her. And honestly, I kind of believe it. I mean, that's the only time I've ever seen it in the last 5 years, really, that she hasn't shown up and destroyed. Like, so to me, it's kind of like, well, I kind of actually believe her. I really do. That this was not necessarily a fluke. She didn't say it was a fluke. She just said, you know what? I didn't show up. I didn't perform. And Pena took advantage of that. And I think that is very accurate. I think that is exactly what happened. Because you know what? I saw Pena's other fights before that. Not somebody I would expect to be beating Amanda Nunes. And you know what? If you even rewatch the first round of their last fight, and Nunes, who was probably at half of her fighting ability, was still destroying. I mean, she knocked down Pena, I think it was twice, and a third time in the second round there. She was knocking her down, doing insane damage, and she wasn't even, like I said, wasn't even 100%. And you know what? Honestly, even outside of all that, the stuff that happened outside of the octagon, I thought really the mistake was that Nunes was just getting reckless. We've never seen her like that. She always respects what's coming back at her. She respects it, avoids it, and then lands her own crazy stuff to come back. And you know what? She didn't do that. She did not do that this time. Instead, she just walked straight into Pena's punches and paid the price for it. She ended up getting stumbled. By the way, after she got stumbled the first time, she still knocked down Pena even after that. So, I mean, to me, if it doesn't go as reckless with the punches, especially, I mean, Nunes is getting a finish this time. Not to mention, by the way, that she is 100% going into this fight, and she is pissed. She wants to get that belt back more than anything, and she is going to absolutely shred Pena to get it back. I honestly think so. This is going to be one hell of a dangerous Amanda Nunes on Saturday. So I'm really inclined to believe that Nunes is going to win this, but I will say there's always that small part of me that keeps thinking, what if it really was Pena and, Nunes was doing well, but Pena just outfought her and just won like that. And the same thing's going to happen again this time. I really don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. But there is a small part of me that keeps thinking that it keeps thinking, oh man, like she did win the last one. And she, I don't know. She did win the last one. But you know what? Again, I also just keep coming back to like the fact that, again, Nunes was absolutely destroying her in the first round. So I don't know. Like, and that was her being fairly unprepared to fight, I would say. By the way, she also said that she couldn't even do her cardio properly at all because she couldn't use her legs. So she was just basically practicing and doing cardio and everything with her arms, her upper body. She wasn't training her lower body, which meant that she couldn't do her normal cardio to push the pace at all. And again, paid the price. So like, there's so many things that just went wrong. And, take with that what you will. I mean, really, because like, you know, that could have been the case in Nunes's other fights and we just didn't know about it. Could have been the case. Who knows? She just didn't want to say that. But anyway, and she's just making excuses now. Who knows? But I honestly, from what I've seen, I actually completely believe her, because everything that she said, I was actually thinking before she said it, and I saw it. I saw it happening. I was like, this is not what she normally fights like. And they even said that in the broadcast too. She doesn't normally fight like that. So to me, I think it's a pretty clear, just go back to giving Nunes the GOAT status. Clear, huge favorite here in my mind. Minus 286 is a fucking steal. That's how I'm seeing it. I mean, I get it. I get why a lot of people are going with Pena. She won the last one, but I gotta say, I'm going with Nunes all the way on this till the wheels fall off. Minus 286. Yeah, parlay probably too. Actually, I don't know. I might take it away from the parlay just because I'm just still, there's still that little part in the back of my mind that's a little scary. A little scared, I mean. The over under 2.5 rounds, dead even, by the way, minus 113 for both. So do you think it's going to be over before the third round? Personally, I think it's guaranteed to be over before the third round. So yes, I'm going all in on the minus 113 for under 2.5, because I think Nunes is going to light her up in the first round, and that's going to be it. I really do. And if not the first round, definitely the second round. That's what I'm seeing. I don't know. The prelims, there's only two that I want to talk about, because honestly, I'm not really all that impressed by the prelims of this card. It's really not the best looking pay-per-view, I got to admit. You know, because we saw some crazy pay-per-views lined up and even some great cards lined up recently. And this is not one of them. I don't know. Like, the don't get me wrong. The main card, straight up fire. I will watch that all day. Like, I would watch all those twice, I'm sure. And even Drew Dober actually closing it out with the featured prelim, which we're going to talk about. That's a fantastic fight. But the other ones, nothing really high profile. Anyway, the first one I want to talk about, Drakkar Klose, Rafa Garcia. This one, I think it's going to be action no matter what. No matter what happens here, we're going to see a lot of action in this fight. And this is the first one really on the card I'm excited about. Klose joined in 2017. He's beaten Jacasey, Bobby Green, and Christos Giagos. And his only losses have come to Dariush and Tamer. Tamer, we don't really hear about at all. He's not necessarily that, he's not really around anymore. But, I mean, we've heard of Dariush. And really, we've all heard of Jacasey, Green, and Giagos. So, maybe not Giagos for some people, but... So that's already pretty impressive. And he was actually originally supposed to fight Diego Ferreira, but Garcia stepped in to replace him. And you know what? He doesn't really have a whole lot of experience, but he has gone 2-2, lost in decisions to Hack Parast and Gritzmacher, followed that up with 2 wins. So it is close. And you know what? They actually fight with almost the exact same style. So this is actually even closer than... Well, it's way closer than the odds are going to suggest here, because I would say it's about 50-50. So maybe like minus 130 for Klose and plus 115 for Garcia. That's what I would say it is. But yeah, I'm just thinking that they are very similar, but Klose, I would say, is just the slightest bit better all around in every category, I would say. And the difference also is that whenever he gets into a clinch, absolute demon. I mean, he comes alive, lights people up with like 20, 30 punches in a combo. Just insane to watch. So I think he's going to get caught in one of those, and I think Klose is going to get him there. But I still think that's going to be a decision, though, because I don't think any of these guys is really... Either one of these guys is going to get finished. So I'm seeing a decision, but I do think that Klose is barely going to edge ahead in that decision. Could even see a split decision here. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, exciting fight there. And the last one I want to talk about, one of the most exciting matchups of the night. It really is. Drew Dober and Rafael Alves. Oh my God. Both of these guys, I mean, two of the most explosive guys in the entire UFC. They really are. They don't wait for anything. They're never in boring fights. Actually, Alves was a little bit because his opponent just kind of clinched up with him and made it boring. Same with Dober when he fought Islam. But when they fight normal people, it's crazy. It's craziness. And we've also seen that anytime either one of them fights somebody that's also exciting, you're talking about fight of the night easy. So that's why I actually think this has a very good chance of being fight of the night. I really do. Dober, unbelievable striker, huge power. I mean, chin. I mean, you talk about Holloway's chin. Holy shit. This guy's chin is a whole other level. I'm dead serious. Like, it's unbelievable. Actually, no, it's probably not as good as Holloway, because Holloway, actually, I don't know. Because if Holloway got hit by some of these punches that Dober's been hit with, Holloway, I think, would actually be dropping too. But you know what? Dober just fights through it every single time. One of the craziest fighters I've ever seen. I love this guy. I really do. But he's also extremely talented too. He's not just a punching bag or some shit like that. No, he's also really good. Alves, on the other hand, also very tough and also has heavy striking, but mostly known for his submissions. And that's the only real threat that Dober faces here, because I think the stand-up, not a problem. I mean, Dober hits way harder. Alves does hit hard, but I mean, Dober hits way harder, and he's just going to walk right through it. And there's no way in hell that Alves is going to stop Dober with punches, considering Terrence McKinney knocked him on his ass like multiple times. I mean, seriously, those punches from McKinney would have stopped, I would say, literally every other single person I've ever seen at 155 or lower. I'm dead serious. I think that would have knocked out any other single person, all of those punches. It was truly unbelievable what Dober did there. So there's no way that Alves can knock him out here. There's absolutely no way. So yeah, Dober's got the edge on the feet here, and he's also got the huge edge in cardio. Alves really does kind of tend to slow down a little bit. Not a crazy amount, but in the second and third rounds, really starts to slow down with the grappling and, yeah, the groundwork, which is really his only chance of winning this fight anyway. So to me, it really depends on how the first round goes, because if Dober can avoid the submissions of Alves, he's going to win. I would say guaranteed he's going to win. But if he gets caught in one of those submissions, I would not be surprised if Alves won it. And that's what I think. That's what I'm a little worried about. But I will say, Alves, he actually did. What did I say here? Did he not get dropped by somebody? I didn't write it. I didn't write it in the article, but I do remember it now. He was actually dropped by Damir Ismagulov, and Ismagulov is very good. He's got a great jab, but you know what? He's not really a power puncher. And Dober, yeah, he's a power puncher. He one of the hardest hitting people in the division. So, yeah, if he was dropped by Ismagulov, I think Dober is just going to just clean knock him out or knock him down, and then, finish it with ground and pound, get a TKO. And I think that's going to be, maybe first round, maybe second round, maybe even the third round, if Alves can hold on, especially with some groundwork, maybe. But, Dober's also pretty good on the ground too. So, I'm just seeing a way more going towards Dober here, and I think he's going to get a finish with those heavy, heavy hands. That's what I think. Dober by finish. Minus 193 for Dober. I would say that's pretty fair. Maybe minus 150 would have been maybe a little more appropriate, but you know what? It's probably bet up at this point, and that's why it's like that. But yeah, minus 193 for Dober all the way. Over under, not heavily favored, but they are favoring the under 2.5 at minus 167. I'm going the same way for sure. I mean, if Alves wins, he's getting a submission. So that's under. And when Dober, Dober might get a decision win if Alves can hold on. But honestly, I think this much safer bet is we're going to see a TKO finish here from Dober. So minus 167, I think, is the way to go. You could even throw that in a parlay and cash in on some things other than that. But yeah, that is it. Finally, that is it for all of that. We will check out a couple of the parlays, and then we will head out and call a close to this 50th episode, landmark 50th episode, and possibly 1 year anniversary. I really should have checked into that. But anyway, not that it matters. There's nobody here anyway to celebrate with me, so it's okay. I'm going with Morales, Michael Morales. I think it's Michael Morales. Either way, Morales minus 650 right now. I mean, he's facing somebody who's brand new to the UFC. This is his debut. And Adam Fugit, I don't really know. Fugit. I know people are going to make that joke constantly. But anyway, he looked good, but Morales is like really good. He's really good. So I just think at minus 650, I think that's the obvious way to go. Throw it in a parlay. Yeah. I'm not confident enough with close at minus 217 to throw that in. Dober might still get submitted by that submission there, so I'm not really sure about that one either. Ankalaev minus 550, probably going with that. Pantoja, maybe. Moreno, yes. Minus 220, yes. Nunes, minus 286, yes. Yeah, looking back on it, I would probably go with Dober just because he is way more well-rounded and has a much better chance of winning this fight. So I think that's what I would go with. Dober, maybe Pantoja, Ankalaev for sure, Moreno, Nunes, and Morales for sure. So yeah, that's where I'm going with the parlays. What a stream. I mean, what's a hot one? That's for sure. In here especially. Take off my banner there. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'll try and cut down. Like maybe I'll only talk about the exciting ones from now on just to cut it down, because 2 hours is a long show. It's a long show. I mean, I used to only do an hour, and that I thought was pretty good. So, 2 hours, I think we're starting to really push it here. And then, of course, when you add in regional cards that I do, like Unified MMA or BFL, then you're talking about another half hour on top of that for like 2.5 hours sometimes. Probably that's what we're going to end up seeing if I keep doing this. So maybe I cut down and not talk about prelims that I hadn't already brought up in the other one. Unless it's a real good fight that I want to talk about. I'll still write about all of them in the article, so don't worry about that. But I might just not bring it up in the broadcast to keep it a little bit shorter. And for the Contender Series, maybe I won't talk. Actually, I don't know. I feel bad for the smaller cards because those are the people that need the exposure the most. So I kind of feel bad about not talking about the Contender Series people as much. So maybe I'll keep talking about the Contender Series people, and of course the smaller cards too. But maybe cut down on the recap for the UFC. I think that's what I'll probably do. But anyway, that is enough for me here. If you want to see any of the other sports, Area 51's got you covered. That's all linked below, but the link is not ready yet because we got a new website a couple weeks ago. They still haven't really given me the link for that special promotion, but I will fix that as soon as we get that going. Yeah. Anyway, all my socials are below. That's Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all that fun stuff. That's all down there. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens, especially with those flyweights. That to me is the most exciting part. and the heavyweights. I want to see Derek Lewis get that KO. Come on, get that KO. And I think he's going to be having a record again. I think he actually does still have the record for most KO wins. So I think possibly, or he might be close. I can't remember, but I want to see him get another. We all want to see him get another one and get that post-fight interview, that crazy interview after. We all want that. So I want to see that. But anyway, and then of course I also am curious to see how the Contender Series is going to go after this week. But yeah, see you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching. I will get my outro here going. Where is it? Where is it? But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Another great episode. And thanks also, I mean, you know, we don't really have the biggest audience, not really much of an audience at all, actually. But we've been doing 50 episodes now. We've got this huge thing going. We're going to keep it going for another 50. Hopefully, maybe. I don't know. Depends if I start getting famous for a different reason or a whole lot of money for a different reason. And I've got a lot of plans, so we'll see. But yeah. Hopefully here's to another 50, trying to get to 100 by next year, by the end of, well, by this time next year, because I only do one a week. So we'll see. Yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for watching, everybody.